available. So how are we going to move ahead? So I think so this particular webinar is going to throw a lot of light on this. Thank you, sir. And over to the MC. I think, it will be nice listening to sir now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to introduce the speaker for today's webinar, Mr. Puttaparthi Lakshmikant Mohan. Sir is a mechanical engineer and also an MBA of Business Administration from California. He has work experience of more than 25 years in various Fortune 500 companies like Caterpillar Inc., Loctite Corporation, John Bean Technology Corporation, and Rostele Inc. His core work segments are in manufacturing, marketing and sales, supply chain management. He has worked in various countries like North America, Singapore, Malaysia, China, and Cape Town and South Africa. Sir has held various roles globally, like operations manager, global operations manager, localization manager, and supply chain manager. Sir is a consulting with client base for more than 10 years in North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Africa as external primary decision maker in the global business area and still continuing in this role. He is also a visiting faculty in Jain University. He has various certifications like Six Sigma from CAT University, USA, MIL specifications for defense, military, aerospace, and airport equipments, USA, Making Great Leaders, Leadership Management by USA Haynes Group, Critical Path Strategies Inc. Singapore, Targeted Selection Interviewers Singapore. So now I would like to hand over to Mr. Puttaparthi Lakshmikant Mohan. Over to you, sir. Sorry to interrupt, Mohan sir. Mohan sir, if you're able to hear me, we are not able to hear you. You have to unmute yourself, sir. You've not unmuted.
Fine.
Yes, sir. From the starting, we have not heard anything because it was...
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for that excellent introduction. I thank everyone in the Jain University for providing me the opportunity to speak and share my global team members' findings. I'm sure some of the key findings will be most useful to you and gives you some amount of knowledge about what's really working in global firms' mind. We all know the history of COVID-19 started from June 19 onwards, and till today, the velocity at which COVID has spread has created a boom, and thereby the global activities are blown up. In spite of this, the market is finding cost inflation and demand is very sluggish in nature. It's difficult for the firms to think about what's going to be the future from 2 to 3 years from now, because no one knows when COVID situation is going to pan out. And at these circumstances, my team, which consists of global Fortune 500 leaders, many leading publishers of magazines, and EFT based in London, leading consultants, have really put on the effort interacting with the global firms and trying to find out what's working in their mind. So my opening message is COVID-19 is presenting us with many new opportunities to improve the way we do things. We need to capitalize on this moment. It's a moment of opportunity, a moment of idea generation, a moment of leadership building in supply chain management. Some more key findings when we discuss with the global leaders and many firms and consultants and publishers. People are moving from globalization to localization. Every country, every firm in any globalized area are looking at how they can localize their processes, how they can localize their products, and how they can localize the entire business activity is what working in the minds of global firms. Today, the globalization is moving towards the localization. Despite the situation being very tough, very challenging, and very unknown, where firms are going to be from 2 or 3 years from now. So some of the examples I can bring in here is one of the leading manufacturers of bicycle in India, who imports 40% of his parts from different countries, is already moved to localization. Another example, the leading manufacturers of lithium-ion batteries for automotives and other applications, like Amar Raja batteries in India, the Excite batteries in India, have gone for massive localization expansion. These examples indicate to us what's the localization role in the forthcoming years. One more simple example I can bring in here, the garment industry, which imports the raw material and accessories for making the garments, is looking for localization. So the simple examples, hundreds and thousands of global firms today are looking at how they can place the localization program on their cards. Another interesting area is diversification. Diversifying the business activities with respect to the product, with respect to the services, bringing new products to the product line, or diversifying the existing product to the new market, or the one the global firms are working. Diversification, simple example, during this period, there was shortage of medical equipment, the respiratory equipments, and personal protection equipment. You must be aware that the manufacturers of these equipments were from automotives and other industrial firms. So another example of diversification is hundreds and thousands of global firms are looking at a diversification strategy in the product and services. One more example where the entire global firms are looking at is in the region of collaboration and relationship building. Collaboration means eliminating the duplication work involved in the business areas. Earlier, the collaboration meaning was different, but COVID has taught what collaboration is going to be in future. Eliminate the unnecessary cost in supply chain by bringing collaboration across the global regions and having a long-term relationship with the suppliers, with the manufacturers, and key players in supply chain management. Diversification, globalization, and innovation, the way the COVID has motivated the global firms to spur innovation in their manufacturing activities. Despite being the situation, can I have the next slide, please? Slide 2. Many companies have almost stopped trading as people are in lockdown at home and manufacturing lines have come to a standstill. In many global regions, imposing of lockdown, easing of lockdown, on and off is happening even today. Under these circumstances, the global firms, the global leaders, even though were not able to manufacture because of these lockdown situation and the downsizing the employee strength, still they're working towards a profitable in what profit they can generate in the forthcoming years. Next slide, please. Can I have the leadership slide? Still the other one. Please go back. No, please go back. Yes, yes, yes. Still. The leadership. Can I have the leadership slide, please? 2. Yes, please. 3. Next one. Next one. Next one. Next one, please. Okay, let's go to the slide 2 only. Fine. I think so. What's working in the mains of global firms is leadership. I recollect the day when I met Jim Collins, the world author of Good to Great Companies, when I was flying from Paris to Chicago. I happened to meet Jim Collins, the world's leading author of Good to Great Companies. So in his book, he says that leadership is about making change. The change management at this stage is very evident for the global firms and other service providers across the global region. Most of the firms are working towards building the leadership in the area of the operational activities, maybe in procurement, maybe in manufacturing, maybe in constructing optimized supply chain models. So Jim Collins, who taught me what leadership in the 15 hours to fly from Paris to Chicago, even today, the book I must have read 15 to 20 times. The leadership is the vital role for the future, and every organization is looking at developing a strong leadership for the forthcoming years. It's also most important that there's going to be job opportunities in the leadership roles, the middle order level. The stakeholders of the organization are going to be the future leaders who bond the link between the shop floor and C-level, between the organization and customers in the market. The leadership is a very vital role, and most of the businesses are working on what should be the leadership model. And I also understand from Jim Collins that leadership is not innate, it has to be taught, and organizations should look at how leadership can be inculcated for future development of business. Having spoken about the leadership roles, next slide, please. The COVID has left a message. Just doing the job in a proper way is not enough. Try to do something great. Try to achieve by utilizing the global leadership ideas, global leadership skills, and global leadership collaboration from others for building a strong and efficient and immune supply chain models which are required for the future coming years. We all aware that supply chain disruptions in various subplaces happened. Many lost their jobs, millions of people lost their jobs. Respiratory mask was shortage, personal protective equipment was shortage even today, and many government schemes and programs were announced. Borders, COVID has not spared even the borders. The borders were closed regionally and across global regions. Because of the supply chain disruptions, the international flights could not move the fleet, the regional flights could not operate. There were total supply chain disruptions from all corners of the supply chain processes. On the supply side, manufacturing globally gradually went down and the profits were below the break-even point. And most of the firms have revealed in our discussion, even today, the broken machine parts, they're not able to get because of the supply chain disruptions. You can imagine at this point of time, the role and importance of supply chain models for future profitability for the firms. Airlines started reducing their flights, air freight cargo capacity went down, another disruption to the supply chain management systems. Certain governments have started blocking the export of certain medical and pharmaceutical products. I don't want to bring in the country, particularly my interest is towards how the global firms in different countries are planning and how the strategies are likely to be arrived with respect to global supply chain management. Next slide, please. Need to reimagine and reform the broken businesses, broken supply chains by building effective and MNU supply chain models, which COVID has left a clear message, trying to do jobs in a more great way, trying to implement those great leadership qualities that Jim Collins has written in his book. Another area where, with respect to job perspective, most of the global firms have informed to us that that's going to be an entry-level jobs, probably in e-commerce business, where Walmart and Amazon and other emerging e-commerce leaders are already in the process of recruiting from the business perspective. The there's going to be many job openings happening in the middle order at the global level for the leaders, the middle managers positions, or the stakeholders positions for building up the gap that is required for future business purpose. I'm not very sure at this point of time how the investments on technology will happen, investment on technological updations will happen, because most of the global firms are indicating to us that investment part towards the technology is going to be very minimal at this point of time. They can even look at investing only after a period of 3 years. So it's going to be a challenge for the technological companies. It's going to be really challenging how they're going to drive the business in spite of this situation. One of the honest advice, this is a time where the technological people who are working in technological companies can move to the operational side and prove their leadership for the future career growth. This is one thing the most of the global firms, Fortune 500 firms, are expressing that they are looking for such sort of innovations in their organization, people from different cultures, people from different domains who can bring in the leadership that is required for the organization. Next slide, please. Surviving and thriving. E-commerce business will live globally. My daughter-in-law, who is the youngest country head for Walmart, looking after Durbine operation from India, her perception is that whatever the work that's being done online across the global regions has yielded a very high level of results. Most of the team members have learned better communication in the supply chain. Most of the cross-cultural teams have performed very well. They were able to interact with the team members. They were able to bring in quite a lot of knowledge in the way. So the online system of working, work from home, or work from any remote areas in supply chain is going to continue for a long time. Many global firms even have informed to us that the cost reduction in supply chain has happened because the manufacturing and operational areas were not incurred any cost with respect to maintenance and sanitization. So that's the advantage from online work from home or work from remote areas. Last mile delivery. Everyone knows that e-commerce is going to capture the major share of market in the forthcoming years, maybe from 2 to 3 years, where some of the cost optimization models from order to delivery, like the last mile delivery on the same day when customers' orders are received, delivery within few hours of time when the customers' orders are received, are all going to rule the world in e-commerce business. Most of the firms, even in India, a retailer whose business is 1 or 2 lakhs, when we ask him his future plans to be on the e-web portals, irrespective of his business, irrespective of profit, he wants to be on e-portal business for conducting e-commerce transactions. That shows that e-commerce business, the last mile delivery is going to rule the world, and then pay-per service. What we understand from the Uberization, Uber has taken most of the automotive market off, because today across the global regions, many countries, we can avoid the facility of Uberization. As long as we want, we can hire the car on a rental basis, and then when we leave the car, someone else will become the owner of the car. Uberization in supply chain is going to rule the world in terms of paper service. Most of the facilities, the global leaders says that they are going to hire. They are not at all interested in owning any facilities because of the cost they want to spend. Most of the airport hubs and across the global regions are operating on paper service models. Last mile delivery and paper service models are going to rule the world in building a cost-efficient supply chain model. Earlier, we used to inform to all the global leaders, build resilient supply chain models. But today, resilient supply chain models is not at all required, as Immunio models are going to replace the resilient supply chain models. Under these circumstances, like when we take a medicine, we want to be immune to that disease. Similar way, when organizations develops their cost optimization models, the number one criteria is immune to the latest globalization needs, or global needs. Automation systems will get priority in the manufacturing and other sectors. Automation, the robotization, even though one robot costs 1 crore Indian rupees worth across the global regions, existing robots in their area of operation, they're trying to expand the operations. At this point of time, investment on automation seems to be much difficult for the farms. So automation with the existing one, with a very low investment, wherever possible, every farm is looking at how they can automate the processes like manufacturing, automation of warehousing, pick, pack, and dispatch of the ones people are looking at. From the automation system, they're trying to eliminate or downsize this organizational strength, moving towards lean and lean management systems. We have the information that Boeing is going to spend certain percentage of its profit that was generated in 2019 towards automation. Most of the funds, what they earned during 2019 economy, may be looking at investing for automation. Today's the positions are below the loss level, below the chart, which indicates the break-even points are much below in the operations. Automation is again $1 million question. People in the market who sell automation system, how the business is going to be with respect to supply chain management, as investment is $1 million question in the minds of global firms. Competition need to be relooked by the companies. The competition, which was earlier before pre-COVID period, is going to change. It's going to be a multipolar market. Many entrants are going to be there because of the localization. Firms moving from globalization to localization, gaining advantage of cost, and then better collaboration and relationship with the local key players in the supply chain is definitely they're going to reduce the cost. The competition is going to be multipolar. The competition is going to be very key. New players, new manufacturers, new suppliers are going to exist in the supply chain models. So the key competition drives the future forthcoming periods. One of the examples we can think of at this point is the aviation sector, which is where the COVID has really blown up the aviation revenues. What experts have shared with us is they are requesting every country's government to bring down the tax rate to maintain the supply chains so that they can reduce the cost, the traveling cost for the travelers. Because 40 to 45% of the airline operation today incurs aviation fuel expenses. So the COVID has played a dominant role in terms of blowing up the aviation industry. It's really very challenging for the aviation industry to come back to the 2019 economy. And the expert says that it takes nearly 3 years, even though the concerned government is going to provide the financial assistance and then brings the tax rates down to benefit the aviation industries. Educational institutions, people like us, will have to switch over to more towards a mentor-based system. The days of mere teaching the syllabus, the days of mere making the students to understand are over. And that the situation where the global firms are planning, where the global firms are trying to improve on the leadership in the organization, it's most essential that we, being the teachers of various subjects, need to move towards a mentor style. So it's all in our hands how we are going to mentor, what type of skills we are going to bring in to the new generation students who are going to take up their careers soon. Buyer's lifestyle is expected to change. The online system of working, work from home, work from remote areas, the same way the hybrid customers who buy online and offline might switch over to 75 to 80% on online systems in supply chain. That's the reason why every retailer across the global regions, even in India, a retailer who makes 1 lakh profit is trying to find how he can make use of these supply chain e-platforms. Buyer's lifestyle with respect to investment, buyer's lifetime with respect to buying patterns, the demographic is likely to be changed. At the moment, we don't have that high level information about how the buyer's behavior is going to be in the global scenario. We just have the information from our expert team that definitely there's going to be a change in buyer's behavior. Another key area where our global team has identified is environmental perspective towards bringing down the greenhouse gases, which are harmful and dangerous to the human beings and also species and animals. Efforts and many global firms are trying to work out strategies how they can environmentally support the future in the supply chains. Most important is automotive sector is trying to switch over to electric driven energy systems for the vehicles where they can reduce the elimination of CO2 or CO by burning fossil fuels, diesels and petrols, etc. So environmental industries, there's going to be many positions open up for the environmental specialists, future environmental leaders in the respective area of industry operations. Renewable energy will replace fossil fuels. Solar energies will replace the fossil fuels. Many investors across the global regions are trying to find out what renewable resources that the country government can provide to us. We are more keen on bringing down the emissions that are likely to happen during manufacturing processes in the supply chain. So the supply chain optimization model, when we look at, that's going to be a leadership role. There's going to be many innovations in building supply chain models from upstream to downstream. The upstream includes the procurement, the design, the research, and the manufacturing process of the farm. The downstream includes the marketing, sales, and the various distribution channels and members who are responsible for successful operation of supply chain systems. Next slide, please. Asia Pacific will lead in improving economy at a faster rate. Very extensive survey. We run several surveys after 5 months of COVID period. And our findings of Asia Pacific countries, mainly we call WIP countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, followed by Singapore, Malaysia, and Taiwan, have already gained momentum. When we compare to May, 5% in the business activities along the supply chain. This is very, very encouraging for other regions also. One of the reasons we came across from those firms is that the impact of COVID was minimal. Today, there are several global regions which are experiencing the second wave of COVID. These countries are free from such effects. They have very minimal effects of COVID, and they are able to thrive and sustain at a very early stage in their business activities. Another two important areas of one, Indonesia is called the hub of garment supply chain activities across the global region. And Philippines is going to be the one technology centers of Asia Pacific region. Philippines is giving all the investors, the technological investors, the various resources required to build a technology center of excellence for many investors from the global regions. The Cold War that happened between US and China during late 2018 and 2019, already many companies from China moved to WIP countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Philippines. It's too early for me to comment on Indian scenario because we're all facing very challenging situation with respect to COVID spread. Still, we are not able to come out of it. And then we are still having the situations like imposing and easing lockdown in many regions across India. So extensive reports I'm not able to provide at this point of time. My apologies for that. But the regions, definitely the Asia Pacific regions, have already gained momentum in terms of business activities, at least 2 to 3% when compared to May 2020. Next slide, please. The question, the $1 million question in every global firm, the consultants and the supply chain professionals, even the financial professionals who recommend the various companies to invest is how will your supply chain look like after COVID-19? This is a very challenging one. It's going to be $1 million question for all the firms across the global regions. The global economy will be more multipolar. New players have emerged, but the old ones are also still around and not to be neglected. We have seen in the beginning, and in India also we have several examples where firms are diversing in the business. Examples like medical equipment manufacturers who are not in the line, who are not in the business, they're diversified and able to support the government in the contribution in the way they develop many medical equipment, but the business was in different line. Product line extension, product mix extension, product diversification from the existing business are likely to happen in the forthcoming years. So the $1 million question remains unanswered in many global firms. Some are really working on that answer to our question, how does your supply chain look like after COVID-19? Next slide, please. The closing message to everyone. This is the moment to leap out and act. People need to step up to the mark and stay engaged to create new innovation by learning, applying, and adopting in a more agile way. An agile supply chain management, a supply chain management which is lean in the processes, a supply chain management which can provide the last mile delivery services, short period of deliveries across the global regions. Like today, Walmart has really taught us the global how they are capable of sustaining during this period, the COVID period, where the last mile deliveries are happening and the first mile deliveries from the end. The last mile delivery pertains to the business areas where they are able to obtain from the suppliers the right type of products and services required to bring in the first mile delivery into action. Some of the points what I've discussed here today are too preliminary. Probably from 3 to 4 months from now, where the visibility is going to improve when compared to the current situation, I'll be able to give you more information on how the world, tomorrow's world of business is going to look like. Another area where I would like to bring in here is the recycling business, because of the environmental pollutions that's been occurring from the import and from the local manufacturing environment. People are more concerned about the recycling of the waste. Most of the global firms are looking at how they can utilize the renewable energy sources to recycle the products to bring down the cost of power utilization. So the recycling process, the recycling plant, and remanufacturing product from the recycled ones are going to attain the prominence in supply chain models. With this, I would like to conclude and look forward to have some questions answered very honestly by me if I know the answers.
Yes, thank you, sir. So now we'll have a question and answer session, right? So for question and answer session, participants, I would request all of you to enable your video for the photos. So kindly enable the video for the question and answer session. And any questions or queries that you have, you can leave that in the chat box accordingly, and your questions will be answered. Participants, any questions that you have, you can put it up in the chat box, and we can have a question and answer session accordingly. And requesting you to switch on the video.
If not, I'm going to ask a question that anyone can answer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's better. How do you expect the COVID to react in the next 2 years? The COVID situation is going to react from the global firm's perspective.
Anybody would like to answer? Please, you can, put it up in the chat box. We would encourage you to do that.
Yeah. I'm not looking at whether the answers is going to be right or wrong. I'm looking at what working on in their minds. That's what I'm really interested.
So there is a question for you from Sheetal ma'am. What is your advice for the students of LSEM when it comes to the job perspective in the present condition?
It's a very good question. To be honest, the entry-level jobs in supply chain management open up or more because of the e-commerce business, because of the new diversified business that are likely to happen in the forthcoming years. LSEM students, particularly students who wants to take up the e-commerce business line, or wide opportunity to serve in those organizations. I'm not very sure about what sort of entry positions they are likely to have, which domain, whether it's going to be a procurement domain, it's going to be a manufacturing domain, even if it is a supply chain area, or they have to work in the warehouses. But I'm sure that the global firms looking at new leaders, probably they could be the new leaders who can enter the organization with the skills and knowledge they gain during their course.
All right, sir, but there's one more question. Question. What is the effect of supply chain management in COVID-19 situation?
Excellent question. We have seen the disruptions of supply chain processes. Many global firms are not able to get their broken parts because of disruption in supply chain, the transportation. That's one example. Even the food during the COVID situation, the COVID breakouts outbreak situation created a lot of problems in supply chain. They were not able to provide food. They were not able to move the various food items from one place to another place in India itself. So disruptions in transportation, in supply chain, is the one we are experiencing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So there's one more question. They're asking what kind of stockpiling creates variability in the demand of small business and how to sustain? What can companies learn from this situation? What are the long-term changes we are likely to see? This is the question from Dr. S. Manikandan.
It's a very good question. The long-term changes to make the supply chain lean as possible so that the cost of investment gets reduced. We cannot say the cost reduction at a point of time. Global funds use how far my cost investment in supply chains can be reduced. So agile supply chain systems, models, lean supply chain models are the one that need to be looked for the future coming years. Even the small retailers, when we interview in one of the leading retail outlets in India, the answer from is he wants to diversify his business from one retail supply chain products to another supply chain product, where he looks at the profit is going to be more. That's why I mentioned very clearly the diversification is likely to happen.
Thank you, sir. Before I move on to the next question, I would like to inform the participants to fill the feedback form which is put up in the chat box, right? And it will be open for 15 minutes from the conclusion of the session. So requesting all of you to fill up that feedback form, which is there in the chat box. So moving on to the next question, sir. Next question is, are we going to get an important question for all of us? Are we going to get the new guidelines in educational policy post COVID-19?
Excellent question. The university has to make their own guidelines, how they're going to mentor the students. Now onwards, the mentoring the students is the primary focus or goals of every university. The mere teaching style, we need to move to the mentoring style. It's in the hands of university to frame their guidelines, how they're going to bring in the mentoring culture in their organization.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next question. So they're asking about, kindly say about COVID effects towards export and import.
Yes. Export and import, I said in the beginning, globalization towards localization. Probably imports gets reduced because in India, one of the example, what I mentioned, the leading bicycle manufacturer who sells across 25 global regions is now looking at globalizing it. 40% of the parts and sub-assemblies what he imports from other countries. So moving from globalization to localization is the one what we can look in the future.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question. Will this lockdown rules be new normalcy? That's the question by Deepak Kumar M.
Can you kindly repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Will this lockdown rules be the new normalcy?
I'm not able to comment on this honestly because the rules of lockdown, we have not given any focus on this sort of a situation that what effects are going to be on supply chain models. We are not even thought about it. To be honest, probably from 3 months from now, when we have the interactions with our global firms and consultants and publishers of leading magazines, will be able to answer. Probably at that point of time, I'll be able to come and give you the answer more honestly.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question. Have we seen similar situations like COVID-19, or is this something unique?
No, from the past several years, probably, I'm not very sure about the number of years, this is the first time this sort of a crisis has occurred across the global region, which has created a hole and then blown up the entire global business activities.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There's one more question, sir. Which sector is mostly affected by COVID-19? How long will it take to recover from this crisis?
Very good question. From my team experts' views, most 99% of the business activities across the global region are performing below break-even point, except the regions what I told, the big countries, the Singapore, Taiwan, and Malaysia have shown little momentum when compared to May. That's about 2 to 5% in their business activities. So most of the global business activities, farms activities are below the break-even point, even today.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question. What should be the steps towards economic development by the companies?
Very good question. The first thing is to have the leadership role, try to bring in the relationship for the required network from the manufacturing area shop floor to C-level, from the leaders, they're all internal stakeholders, and from the organization to the market and sales areas, the retailers, the customers, the relationship building across the supply chain area.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There's one more question. What can companies learn from this situation? What are the long-term changes we are likely to see? What kind of stockpiling creates variability in the demand of small business, and how to sustain?
Excellent question. COVID has left behind a message. Just doing good is not enough for future years. Try to be great. The Jim Collins, the fortune that I recollect, the fortunate day when I met Jim Collins, flying from Paris to Chicago. Hey, in that 15 hours of flying hours, he coached me what the leadership is about. So the first answer to your question is the leadership models. What sort of a leadership model that the firms are going to be? The second part is build more effective and immune supply chain models, not just resilient supply chain models, which we are all more focused towards those resilient models before the pre-COVID period, that is 2019. So the term resiliency is moved to immune models that is adaptable to the next future supply chains.
Yes, sir. Thank you. There's one more question.
I want to add the various inventory models, like just in time, vendor managed inventories, no more excess, sensing demand and manufacturing are going to be rulers of the future world. So under these conditions, sensing demand and how the inventory management system need to be brought in is left to the global firms and their supply chain models. So please remember that inventory models like just in time and then vendor managed inventory are no more applicable with this COVID situation, because demand sensing and then manufacturing and first mile are the one that's going to rule the world in supply chain management.
Thank you, sir. There are a few more questions. Is there any way to fastest service in supply chain management in this crisis period?
One way is how far the airlines can start operating the fleets, because the local or the regional transportation in supply chains like the rail and road may help, but how far the airline industries, particularly the air carrier cargoes, can operate from one border to another border. I told you in the beginning, COVID has not even spared the borders. The borders are closed even today. So the faster supply chain, the faster transportation in the supply chain system is possible only if the air carrier starts the fleet operations.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question is, keeping the environment depletion in mind and the global warming, will these lifestyle helps it to sustain our natural resources? This question is by Deepak Kumar M, sir.
Yes. One side, the natural resources, the fossil fuels, for example, the diesel and petrol, the cost is increasing. If you look at an Indian situation, every day the government of India, even though it's increased in prices, but when you look at a week or 15 days from now, the cost is going to be more. Renewable energies, another source like solar energies, windmill energies, which can bring down the cost of operations of the farmers, and which will minimize the environmental impact on human beings and on the species and animals as per the Environmental Act. Definitely, the renewable energies are going to be an attraction for the investors from now onwards. It's a very good question. I like this question.
Thank you, sir. The next question is by Madhuri. How to address supply chain management crisis in agricultural products in India?
Excellent. The answer is government has to come out with various policies and procedures with respect to supply chain management. I remember about a month or so, the farmers were trying to transport their product, what they have grown, like tomatoes, potatoes, and all those products. So the government interference in supply chain management is most important. I also noticed our Honorable Prime Minister Modi's attention towards the supply chain in India. So it's the supply chain system that the government provides support to the farmers, particularly the agricultural sector, is what needs to be looked into.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, will this globalization or global village exist in post COVID-19? And they want you to comment on Atmanirbhar Bharat.
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, what to answer for this question, to be honest.
All right, sir. So going on to the next question. The next question is, when a crisis has significant financial impact, how businessman can frame their business model to reduce costs, both in short and medium term? By Dr. S. Manikandan.
Very good question. There's going to be what are called as growth indicators. Growth indicators of the foundations for supply chain management models. So identify those lead indicators or growth indicators in supply chain models. based on growth indicators, they have to frame the strategies in bringing the most efficient immune supply chain models. The lead indicators are the one every firm is looking at and watching across the global regions. What's going to be the lead indicators that supports them to build immune supply chain models?
Thank you, sir. Going on to the next question by Charu. What government could have done differently or more to tackle COVID-19 situation in a more better way?
This, I cannot answer this very honestly because each state has their own policies and procedures. So it's in the hands of the individual politicians like ministers and MLAs who takes care of the entire region. They should be able to answer this, what they should have done to control this situation. Because I see what a number of ministers are talking in a different way, and each one is talking without making much sense for the public. That's what I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I feel the answer to this. It's in the hands of the government that make sensible things to work.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question. Moving on to the next question. Will the job opportunities increase or decrease after the crisis in business sector?
Excellent question. Downsizing across the global region is going on. Downsizing from level B to level C, C level or the laborers cadet, and then the B levels of the managers. But most of the global firms, the consultants have come and told us the opportunities exist in some domains and some sectors and not all. Probably when I look at a leadership, that's one which provides and opens up the more opportunities in any sector, might be an automotive sector, might be a machine manufacturing sector, might be a marketing sales sector, whatever it is, or wherever it is. So it's based on the domains, based on the leadership needs for the organization. I again repeat the Jim Collins, who coached me about 15 years back, build leadership. It's not innate, it's taught. So how they have understood the leadership in the careers, if they're working, if they've experienced, how they have trained themselves to become tomorrow's world leaders. Only those leaders are definitely going to get opportunities. The startup, yes, the supply chain is one area. The startup can be looked into. The technology, I'm not very sure, because global firms believe that even people who are working in technology side, developing the various software platforms, can be looked into other domains if they are suitable to play the leadership roles in firms. I would honestly, my advice is that if someone wants to change the job, this might be a right time, because they can prove to the organization that they can be a very strong leader for tomorrow's world of business. It's very difficult for me to tell which domain, which segment, which industries has how much openings. But from my consultation with the global leaders, I've personally consulted, I've been consulting with the Fortune 500 leaders who keeps on talking to me, and publishers of magazines who keeps on giving information to me on how the job market is going to be from 2 or 3 years from now.
Thank you, sir. The next question is our medical infrastructure needs to be more specialized and standardized in the way of more spending?
Yes, to some extent, yes. But there are evidences during the COVID period that even without having infrastructures, maybe those are the products, the simpler products that automotives and other industries have manufactured. So now onwards, two segments will attain high priority. One is clinical trials to develop the medicines for the virus or for other diseases that are likely to come in the way. I'm not very sure, but clinical trials have the topmost priority across the global regions. The other one sector is the medicine on one side, and the medical equipment manufacturers on the other side. Most of the clinical trials today that's happening have constant information about how the supply chains, how they are procuring the raw materials, and how they are working towards developing medicines. So COVID has left a message that clinical trials are to be on priority in the global regions.
Thank you, sir. There's one more question. The question is, will recover be possible from COVID?
Yes, it is possible, but not immediate. It takes time. It takes time for the firms and other service providers to understand what's going to be the lead indicators and try to work on those lead indicators which brings profit, or they can bounce back to the 2019 economy. Definitely it is possible. That's why I said in my opening message that convert the negative to positive. People should think positively. It's the cycle, action, reaction, and then normal. We are into the action and reaction phase of the supply chain. So how we are going to adopt ourselves to the normal is the one every global firm is working at.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I think that's it with the questions. There are no more further questions accordingly. Thank you, sir. Before I move on to further, I would request all the participants to fill in the feedback form, which is there in the chat box, right? If there are any further questions, yes, you still have time to leave to put it up in the chat box. We can continue it further.
They can even contact me anytime they want, because my contact details are available in Giant University, and they can send questions. Honestly, I will try to answer them once I have the answers from a global team.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for enriching us with the knowledge of supply chain, right? Thank you so much, sir. Now, I deem it my privilege to extend a heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Chainraj Roychand, founder, President, Jain Trust and Chancellor, Jain deemed to be University, who is in absentia, and Dr. N. Sundarajan, Vice Chancellor, Jain deemed to be in University in absentia. My humble gratitude to Dr. Ishwaran Iyer, Dean, Commerce and Director, Industry Interface and Key Projects, and also to Dr. Dinesh Neelkant, Director of CMS, and to Dr. B.A. Vasu, Director, School of Commerce, School of Computer Science and Information Technology, Jain deemed to be University, for giving us an opportunity to organize this webinar. My sincerest gratitude to our resource person, Mr. Puttaparthi Lakshmikant Mohan, for this knowledgeable webinar. Thank you to all the coordinators and heads of various departments. Humble gratitude to all the participants without whom this webinar wouldn't be possible. Thank you all once again. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all.